Hello, and welcome to my presentation on The Watermelon Woman. I really enjoyed watching this film and reading about it, and I'm excited to share some of what I've learned with you and to learn about the films that you all researched as well. First, we have just some general information. The Watermelon Woman was written and directed by Cheryl Dunye, who we can see in the image here. She also starred as herself in the film, and this is a screen grab of Cheryl as Cheryl in the video store that she works at. The Watermelon Woman was initially released in 1996 and was funded, at least in part, by the NEA, or National Endowment for the Arts. Before we get too much further into this presentation, I want to give you a brief synopsis of the film, just a little background. I'll just read what's on the screen here. Cheryl Dunye, a black lesbian filmmaker, becomes enamored with the Watermelon Woman, a black actress from the 1930s. She embarks on a journey to uncover the identity of the woman, and in the process discovers that the Watermelon Woman, Faye Richards, was also a lesbian. I don't want to give too much away, but I think that should at least help you understand some of the information that follows. Alright, so here's a cute little timeline with information about the distribution and reception of The Watermelon Woman. Like I said before, it was initially released in 1996 when it premiered at the Berlin International Film Festival. And then between 96 and 97, it was shown at several other international film fests. And in 97, it was released in the US. It was distributed by First Run Features and released on DVD in 2000. Then in 2016, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the film, it was screened for a week by the Metrograph in New York City. So we've talked about exhibition, and now we're going to talk about reception and cultural significance. The Watermelon Woman has won several awards, including the Teddy Award for Best Gay Film at the 1996 Berlin International Film Festival, where it premiered. It had some trouble finding its audience at first, but quickly became what many call a queer cult classic. There was some controversy about the film receiving NEA, so government funding, mostly because it does include a lesbian sex scene. A man by the name of Peter Hoekstra, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, tried to get Congress to revoke Dunye's funding because he thought the film was, quote-unquote, patently offensive and possibly pornographic. The sex scene only lasts like 30 seconds, but what do you expect? He was a Republican. The Watermelon Woman was and is culturally significant because it deals with issues of blackness, queerness, and being a woman. Its release coincided with the third wave of feminism in the 90s, when feminists were becoming more and more concerned with inclusivity or intersectionality and the social and cultural treatment and depictions of women. And then the image that we have here is a screen grab of Cheryl in the film going to interview a woman about the Watermelon Woman, and I just think she looks so cool. She's got her camera bag and everything just ready to go. So now let's talk about some specifics of the film in terms of stylistic and narrative qualities. In other words, how does the film attempt to do what it set out to do? The Watermelon Woman is a documentary film. It follows Dunye's real-life journey of creating the film, so it's kind of meta in that way. It's a film about the film itself, among other things. Dunye alternated between reenactments with actors who played the real people in her life and straightforward interviews. Sometimes they were interviews with other people, and sometimes it was Dunye herself sitting in front of the camera and answering questions and sort of talking about her methods. Dunye makes use of archival materials such as photographs and video clips, and archival is in quotation marks here because the materials were actually fabricated for the film, so Dunye herself had created all of the archival materials that we see. They're not actually historical documents. Dunye employs a voiceover narration for much of the film. She speaks directly to the viewer. She tells you about her research and the creation of the film. She narrates events and moments as they appear on the screen. It seems like a pretty straightforward documentary, but it has a plot twist at the end, and I'm not going to ruin it for you, so you'll just have to watch it yourself to figure out what that is. For me, the relationship between the film and the filmmaker is the most interesting part of The Watermelon Woman. Cheryl Dunye, this is a film as much about her as it is about the Watermelon Woman, who we find out her name, the Watermelon Woman's name, is Faye Richards. Dunye starts researching the Watermelon Woman because, as a black woman in film, she's interested in black women in film. So there's one point of connection. Faye and Dunye both live in Philadelphia. Through her research, Dunye discovers Faye was in the family, as she says. Faye was a lesbian. So both Faye and Dunye belong to the LGBT community, another point of connection. At the same time that Dunye discovers Faye was intimately involved with a white female director, Dunye herself is engaging in an interracial relationship. These two images that you see on the screen here are two of my favorites. You have Faye, Watermelon Woman, and Martha Page, the white director, on the left, and Cheryl Dunye and Diana on the left. The couples aren't posed exactly the same in these images, but they feel the same to me. I don't know if it's the wine glass in both images or the way that the women smile at each other, but I definitely think that the similarity here is intentional with all of the work Dunye does to show us how her life and the life of the woman that she's researching are connected. So we've talked about cultural significance a little bit, how the film found footing in the lesbian community, but now we're going to transition into talking about the Watermelon Woman's significance to American history. I would say first and foremost that it's significant in its depiction and representation of queerness in American history and to the feminist movement. It has so much of that intersectionality that I mentioned earlier, and it's the first feature film directed by a black lesbian, so that in and of itself is pretty significant, I would say. And if you know who to look for, you can spot a plethora of famous lesbians and feminist activists in the film in the background. That could be a fun little game, I don't know. The film is significant in its representation of blackness. I saw a headline that I really liked for an article when I was doing my research, and it was Cheryl Dunye always knew Black Lives Mattered. So the film is a telling of a story that doesn't get told very often, but needs to be told, and that's significant, I think. And finally, the film is significant to American history in that it recognizes the work of black actresses in the 1930s and points to the lack of resources and materials available about black women, and even more specifically, queer black women in our nation's past. Alright, that's all I have for you. I hope this was an enjoyable experience and that I've piqued your curiosity about The Watermelon Woman in addition to providing some information about the film. I definitely recommend giving The Watermelon Woman a watch, and I hope that I didn't talk too fast and that the audio sounds okay for you guys, and I'm excited to see all of your presentations. Thanks!